Hi, and welcome to Matt Holman Talks Mental Health, the podcast where I have the opportunity to sit down and chat about mental health with amazing humans. For this episode, I'm so pleased to welcome Lucy Williams to the conversation. Welcome, Lucy.
Thank you very much.
Lovely to see you. So, very brief introduction from me, and then I'll ask Lucy to do the official, proper introduction to who she is, what she's doing. So Lucy and I met about 3 years ago at a mental health first aid training course. She came along as one of the wonderful delegates, and I always remember Lucy was a really involved participant, and she's got a great background that's going to help these conversations around mental health as well, seeing things from different perspectives. Won't steal too much of your thunder there, Lucy, but we've stayed in touch since. She even bought me lunch at one point, which was just amazing, and we've just sort of kept in contact, which is lovely. I really enjoy continuing conversations with people, especially as they're sort of evolving their processes or their thoughts around mental health too. So Lucy, welcome. Lovely to see you. Do your real introduction, who you are, what you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm Lucy Williams. I'm a work in progress, and I am splendidly imperfect. And I am the mother of two beautiful boys who are 9 and 11, and I have a lovely husband called Michael, and I'm also the owner of the little HR department. So I set up on my own a couple of years ago and went freelance.
Brilliant stuff. And I love the fact that you introduce yourself first, your real self, the real side of you.
Yes, those who know me will know what I'm talking about.
Brilliant. Okay, that's great. So as always, these conversations, there's one big question and then we'll work out a conversation or a chat around it. So your journey with mental health, your story, your life, what you've been through or what you've been doing, you define it. I'm not going to tell you what to say, of course, and yeah, just let you go. So I'll give you the time to talk about what you need to talk about.
Good. Well, I did want to start by I had a few words I put together.
Okay.
And then I'll talk about the journey. So yes, I'd like to share. My kids don't eat organic quinoa. I've forgotten to pick my kids up from school. I've never baked them a birthday cake, ever. I always buy them. I still take antidepressants. I don't read parenting books anymore. I have worn different shoes to work. My kids have been at one at school doing PE in uniform because I've forgotten their PE kit probably more than 4 times. I can't keep up with WhatsApp or the multitude of demands around me. I don't make costumes. Everything is courtesy of Amazon. Last week I got cross with my son and called him an arsehole. My mental health is good now and I know where to go for help. I run my own business and it's going really well. I'm loved by many. I have raised 2 happy, well-adjusted, kind boys who know and understand that humans are not perfect. I'm doing my best and I am splendidly imperfect.
Brilliant. I love it. What a wonderful way to open. So there's many parts to that. We won't talk about the shopping one.
No, I just felt like, do you know what? That's the real me.
Splendidly
And
imperfect.
my mental health journey is all about, I guess, moving into the role of mother and motherhood, and then balancing that with my career. So yeah, that was just some words about what it really feels like for me day to day, and all the mistakes I make, and all the highs I have and all the lows I have. So yeah.
Amazing. Well, what a wonderful sort of insightful way to put it out there. And I've not seen somebody do it that way, which is just great. You know, it's brilliant. It really is refreshing to sort of hear and those imperfect parts as well. And you're right, you know, that's what we all are, isn't it? None of us are perfect. None of us have got it all pinned down. So that journey, let's talk about that then. So if that's okay, how and when did things change or start, or you continue that conversation?
So I think for me, it sort of coincided with having my first son, Sterling. I think up until that point, I'd had a relatively stress-free life. You know, I was happily married. I was doing well career-wise. I'd just done my master's degree. I had great friends. You know, I'd never had to sort of be under a huge deal of pressure or really worry about much. I always felt like I was quite a calm, relaxed kind of person. And I was so delighted to be pregnant. I wanted my whole life to be a mum. It's totally what I aspired to do. But I think just the reality of it when it happened was a bit of a shock.
Right.
And it started in hospital because I had a C-section. I'd gone into labour, I had a C-section, and I was in a lot of pain in hospital, and the care was questionable. My son wouldn't breastfeed. It got to the point where I think we were like two days in by this point. My son hadn't fed. He now wouldn't wake up. It wasn't till, I'd had like 3 hours sleep in, several days. And it wasn't till my husband came in and, I was like a complete mess. And he kind of got the doctors in, and suddenly, he wouldn't wake up. They sort of stripped him down. Eventually, thank God, they gave him a bottle, and it was all a bit of a panic.
Right.
And it was several days before I ended up going home. And I think, the fact he wouldn't breastfeed, all of that, and it was a bit traumatic. We got home. By the time I got home, I was a mess. Right. And I thought, well, this isn't what I planned.
Yeah.
I was going to be this perfect mum that, breastfed, and, we'd go home after 48 hours surrounded sort of by Disney birds, and, it was all going to be perfect. This is not what I planned. And, I think we found our flow when I got home, and it was good. I was sleep deprived like any one mum would be. But I think at this point, it's just where the anxiety started. Right. And it wasn't that bad at this point, but it was definitely there. Because I was sort of trying to be this perfect mother. And, you get advice from, oh God, the health visitors, the midwives, your friends, your family. I did a search on Amazon the other day just to see how many parenting books there are. Take a guess.
Oh gosh, there's going to be more than 10, right? I reckon
70,000.
Yeah, that is incredible.
Right. So I thought, well, is it any wonder? You're a parent. People start you buy books and all this, and is it any wonder that people are starting to feel anxious about being a new parent? It's really difficult. And I think for me, it was just I'd gone sort of at the time from the top of my career to suddenly. I've gone from the city to shitty nappies, and the transition, it was suddenly just, a totally different life. And we then moved when Sterling was about 6 months old, and we moved to Farnham. I didn't actually know anyone. We don't have any family nearby. So actually I felt really lonely. Stells and I were good buddies and everything, but it was really lonely. Yeah. And I think, there is also a lot of pressure around you. Like, I go to the park, and if we got out once a day, we were doing well. And you go to the park and there's mums like jogging with babies in their buggies and making organic quinoa with a craft business on the side. And, frankly, if we were both wearing pants and we managed to get out, we were doing well.
Amazing. Yeah.
And then, so I went back to work when Sterling was about 9 months old, and that's when the stress really started to go up a notch or two. Because I was really obviously sad to leave him, and worried about leaving him and what effect it would have. And then you've got all these mums who are staying at home looking down their nose at you on, oh, you're a working mum, and then you've got the judgment from work, like, or you're not, oh, you've got to go home to your kids. Oh, you've got to leave at 5. What, you can't stay? And I just found that all really hard. I felt, real guilt for leaving my son, and real guilt work-wise for having to leave early, because I was such a conscientious employee, and, I'd always just stay till the work was done. And I was commuting to London, which in hindsight was ridiculous, rushing back to get to nursery and everything. And I felt it was a lot. I found it very tough. And, my husband unfortunately works in an industry where he didn't have any flexibility to help me. So really, it was all on me. So it was just a lot. And obviously you're not getting any sleep either. I can remember going to work when, my son had been up 7 times in the night, and you're literally on the train like a human shell.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And then having to go to work and try to, whatever you're doing, train people or hold meetings or
put on the show, right?
Yeah, and I know every working parent in the world will, including yourself, will totally understand what I'm talking about. It's not easy. So then I had my second son in 2011, and we made the decision, pretty early on then, that I wouldn't go back to work, because it was just, for our family, we just knew it'd be, we thought it'd be easier if I was at home. So I gave up work, and I was at home with the two of them. But actually that is when I started to feel really ill.
Right.
I thought that being at home and not having the pressure of work would make everything okay. Actually, the reality was, 2 under 2, or they were thereabouts at the time. I did start to feel really ill. I was constant anxiety about sort of keeping them alive and keeping them well, but also I just started to feel really down, to the point that I kind of felt numb. And I'd go out on a beautiful day. I had good days as well. Like, I equally was loving being a mum on the good days, but then I, occasionally on the weekends I get a break and go out for a walk. And I can remember going out for a walk, and it was the most beautiful sunny day, and I just felt nothing. I just felt, completely kind of monotone. And it wasn't really, I went on for ages. I just didn't ask for help. I didn't really talk to anyone. I think it was probably when a mum friend of mine opened up about her own mental health journey.
Okay.
That I thought, oh my God, that's what's happening to me.
Right.
And perhaps what's happening to me isn't normal, and perhaps I should go and get help and stop sort of pretending everything's okay. Because actually, if you pretend everything's okay, because I am typically such a positive person, and I just banged on and pretended everything was all right. And, so if you do that, people will assume that you're okay. So it was a long time before I asked for help. And eventually I went to my doctor and told her how I was feeling and all the symptoms and stuff. And she diagnosed me with depression and put me on antidepressants. And, she said to me, she sees it a lot in new parents. And, the pressure of being a parent and juggling things is very real. But, I also felt really embarrassed and really pathetic, because I thought, here I am, a sorry mum. I'm so lucky. I'm not working, got, happily married, 2 beautiful boys, something that people crave for their entire life and some people can't have. And I'm lucky, we're not worrying about money and all that kind of stuff, but I'm feeling so low. So I kind of felt embarrassed about it. And, the doctor said to me I should go for counselling and stuff. And it was a long time before I did that too, because I just thought, well, what's the counsellor going to think about this pathetic housewife,
Right.
With depression. But I did eventually go, and it was helpful. And, it turned out it wasn't just what was happening right now. There was things in my childhood that I perhaps hadn't dealt with, or that, when you're a parent, things can come back up from your childhood when you sort of change roles and things. So, I worked through that, and I'd say then I started to feel a lot better quite quickly, which was amazing. Where to next? So yes, and also, it's amazing today to be chatting to you, because this was 7 years ago. I mean, I never thought I'd be in a position or feeling comfortable enough to share this with anyone. There was a time where I wouldn't have even shared it with my family or my friends. So it's kind of a big deal, and lovely to be in a place where now I've totally accepted it and I'm at peace with it. But also I feel it's so important to now share it with other people, because I think, well, if one person watches this and thinks, gets something out of it, then it's worthwhile. And, we're not all perfect, are we? And everyone's struggling in their own different ways. So yeah, it's
so true. And I think, thank you for sharing all of that. And by talking about it, it does help other people. It will help other people. That's the key to all of this, isn't it? Is you mentioned it in your little bit there in your story around the other person when they said about it. It gives you that thought of, okay, I'm not alone, and recognizing that. So thank you for sharing that. I feel very very privileged to sit and to listen to you talk about it. And like you say, 7 years ago,
and actually, these days I'm much more open about it. Like, if
brilliant,
I've had other friends that are having babies and going through all of that, and sometimes just by saying, when I was dealing with all of this, I ended up with depression, and they're like, really, and I say, and then some of them have shared their concerns with me and things as well. So I have been, in my personal life, I've been much more open about it. Work life I didn't find so easy, because I was very concerned about the stigma associated with it. And also, should I go on to the next bit of my story?
Go for it.
So the next bit, I guess after a couple of years at home, I again thought I'd feel fulfilled being a mum at home, and I didn't entirely. I just felt I loved my time with the boys, but I missed my job and I missed doing something else. So I found a part-time job locally, which is where I ended up working in the same building as you, in Camberley, and I absolutely loved it. It was like the total best of both worlds. I got a couple of days off with the kids, but equally I was at work and loving my job. Great people, all of that. There was still the mad juggle of, being a mum and work and everything. But I think as over the years, my role got bigger, the company was growing. I started doing more hours, and equally the kids were getting older. Their clubs and their lives were getting more involved, and I was doing all of it. So I think, again, and this is the point where I met you, Matt, and I've gone on the mental health course actually for my profession, because I was head of HR, and I thought it was really important that, especially considering my background, but also there was a girl at work who was having crippling panic attacks, and I kind of wanted to be able to help her with that, but also I just thought it was really valuable. But we were doing the stress bucket exercise. I don't know if you want to explain that to everybody.
It's a bucket that we put all our stresses into, and it has a tap attached to it. It looks a bit like a sheep for anybody that knows it or seen it. It looks like a sheep's head. And the idea is that you release stress by using either helpful or unhelpful coping mechanisms. And of course, the best one is to use is the helpful. Is that about right? And then if it doesn't get released, it goes over, doesn't it? And it flows.
Yeah, and we had to write down everything that was stressing us, right? And I just remember there was like, I don't know, 10, 15 people on the course. And I started writing everything down that was stressing me out. And I was still going, and I looked up and I realized everybody else had finished.
Right. Yeah. That happens sometimes.
I was still writing.
Yeah.
And I suddenly felt really choked that day, and thought that I've just realized that the balance isn't good again. And I wasn't feeling 100%. So it was about that time that I got an offer from somebody to work freelance part-time, which is something I'd always thought about doing eventually. So that was kind of when I took the leap to go things on my own.
Amazing.
And so far it's been amazing. I just needed that extra flexibility to sometimes be at home working, and also just to I can drop the kids off, I go to work, I can pick them up, and then I come home. They're of an age now where I can do a couple more hours whilst they're at home, and it just works for our family. It's it's much better.
Brilliant. And you know, and wishing all the best to the little HR department moving, you know, into the future. And it was fascinating that you sort of talked about the stress container and the activity there, because it is such a critical point in that training, I think, that helps people to realize, you know what, we've all got so much going on in our lives in different ways. And some people have got it quite compartmentalized, and some people have just got this whole thing of massive lists of things going on. With the knowledge you have now, right, so about mental health and that journey you've been on, because you've obviously been on a journey that you've experienced lots of things, do you find that helps your role with what you're doing to give you the right sort of motivation or passion, power, whatever you want to determine that to look like? How do you feel that's working now?
What, my mental health journey?
Yeah, with the work that you're doing, because obviously from an HR perspective.
Yes, no, I do. Definitely. I mean, you know, the organizations that I work with, I can advise them on how to handle mental health for people in their teams, and also to think about well-being, and whether they have some, you know, a strategy to support employee well-being. So yes, absolutely. But I think also, just as an HR person, professional, you know, I have a real, funnily enough, invested interest in flexible working.
Yep.
You know, I set up a Facebook group, sorry, not Facebook, LinkedIn group the other day about, you know, let's say yes to flexibility post-COVID. And that's something I really believe in passionately, and not just for, you know, not just for working parents. I think at the end of the day, do you know anyone who's looking forward to going back to commuting 5 days a week?
No.
Neither do I.
Nobody at all. I don't actually know anybody that's looking forward to go back to commuting at the moment.
Yeah. So you know what? If we can find a balance that works for both parties, then let's do it. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah. And you know, and you've lived that experience, right? So go back to those days when you were commuting. How did that feel for you? What was going through your head? I know you said about the empty shell, the sort of, you know, 7 times a night waking up, but
yeah.
Expand that or extend that along a longer period of time.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I enjoyed it more when I didn't have the pressure of having to be home at a certain time.
Of course, yeah.
You know, sometimes it was tiring, but I'd, you know, read books on the train and everything. But yeah, I mean, latterly it was just because I was just up against it time-wise so much, and it was just so stressful.
Yeah,
so stressful. But yeah, equally, you know, my husband commutes now, and he got 1 day a week working from home before COVID, which was like, you know, extraordinary for his industry. But I think, you know, they might now get 2 days working from home. So
that gives that flexibility, hopefully, to the future of it. I think there is a movement towards that, isn't there, for many?
I hope so. So I just think for anyone, you know, if you have a couple of days at home and you're able to just get out and walk or run, or, you know, be outside, shove the washing in lunchtime, you know, all of it just helps us all feel a bit more in control of things and a bit less overwhelmed.
Hopefully, it's just having the ability to switch off, isn't it? I think that's the thing. It's making sure that flexibility doesn't mean I work all day. It means that I can work, you know, in pockets or pieces that I need to do my job. And I think that's going to be so critical, isn't it? So there's a lot of trust element in there. There's a lot of, oh my God, there's loads of things to talk about. I'm sure there's a million other things. And if anybody does want to get any support or advice or help, I'm sure they can come and talk to somebody like yourself, Lucy.
They certainly can. They certainly can.
So a couple more things. We're well into the sort of the last parts of this now, but I do want to check in with you. How was COVID for you? How has the pandemic been for you as a family? And, you know, how's your experience of that been?
A roller coaster.
Okay. Honesty. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think there were times at the beginning where I was loving it with my hands in the air, thinking, this is great. I don't have to do the school run and we're baking. And other times where I was holding on for dear life. I want to get off. It's been really nice to spend time as a family at the beginning, but then equally no family should spend this much time together.
No.
We've all been at home, you know, we found it really hard, and the kids have found it really hard.
Sure.
I mentioned to you the other day that my son got really, really down. He's 9 years old. He's trying to going to school on a computer.
Yeah.
He's missing all his friends. He's been quite emotional and quite down recently. So yeah, it's just, I think enough is enough now. But I think there's a couple of things. I think it's made us all realize the importance of human contact, which I knew already, but we've never been in this situation before, have we? No. So whereas I think some people think, oh, wouldn't it be great to work at home all the time?
Yeah.
Now what do you think?
Well, it's been a huge social experiment, right? So
absolutely.
now we can
absolutely. And then so there's the human contact, which is obviously so important, and what that does to your mental health and your mood and everything. And then for me, the flexibility piece about it's been an experiment that actually it can work to work from home. So do we all need to be now going back to 5 days in the office?
No, I think that's going to be individual as well, isn't it? It's such a difficult question to answer for everyone, because there isn't an answer for everyone. It is about, how do you feel, Lucy, and how do I feel about it? And each person will define that differently, because some people really need to be in an office because they just don't have the facility to work from home. And it's just being honest and conscious, I think, is the thing, isn't it? This work from anywhere, or work, it's got to have a model that says it's okay to come to the office as well. And and I know a lot of companies are sort of shutting down offices in many ways, because they're saying, well, we don't need that, because we've proven for a year that we don't.
And there's a big boost in the kind of local flexible office space as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so we're seeing a lot of that. Hotels are moving into that domain right now. They're renting out rooms as bedrooms for meetings. That's what they're going to be doing. So it's fascinating.
I'm not sure I agree with that from an HR perspective.
Well, I don't think they're leaving the beds in. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not involved in those conversations. I was just reading an article about it. So the future. Let's talk about the future, because obviously you've been through experiences. You've got lived experience now. You've got knowledge of these things and where you're heading. What's your plans? What are you thinking about the future?
Oh gosh, that's a good question.
It doesn't have to be 3-5 years time. It's just, what's your thought?
No, I think business is going really well, and I'm really enjoying that, and I'm definitely looking to grow that. Perhaps taking on other people and growing it, but I would do it slowly, because I don't want to reach that point again where I'm completely overwhelmed. So I need to make it work for all of us in this house. But also I think giving back. I mentioned to you, I'll plug it now. I don't know if you can see it, my mate in our HR. So with a lovely local HR consultant called Tracy, who I met in lockdown, we set up my mate in HR together. And it's, at the moment, it's just a LinkedIn page, but the kind of reasoning behind that is everybody needs a mate in HR, and we put lots of kind of ideas, advice, insider knowledge onto the page, and as a way of giving back. And I think we're going to do webinars and things like that, where we will share, perhaps if you've been made redundant, how does that feel and how you can get through it, and tips on interviewing and getting a new job, progressing your career, all those kind of things. And we're going to start, I think, doing some podcasts where we get other people to share, I guess similar to what you're doing, but their career journey, and kind of what that's been and what they've learned from it. So definitely some giving back as well.
Brilliant stuff. Well, good luck with all of that, and good luck with the business and with the social venture that you're doing and stuff. So I'm sure it'll be amazing. We're at the end. I'm going to give you the floor just to say the final thoughts, whatever you want to say. But just want to say a huge thank you, Lucy, for agreeing to participate in this with me, to sit down and have a chat and just become sort of one of many amazing humans that are telling their stories of their journey with mental health. So thank you. Any final thoughts or words?
Well, firstly, thank you for having me. It's been a real privilege for me to speak to you today. And I think what you're doing is amazing. You are an equally amazing human. I think, in closing, I would just say, there's a lot of help out there if you are struggling with your mental health, just ask and actually tell people. You know, you make assumptions how people will react, and actually it's not always how you expect. And yeah, lastly, perfection isn't normal, it's bullshit.
Love it. Splendidly imperfect, I think, was
Splendidly
the phrase
imperfect,
that I'm
yeah.
taking from this as well. But yeah, it's amazing. Listen, you've been great. I've loved chatting to you. I've loved having you as a guest on here as well. As you say, there are many people out there that do want to help and support the conversations. And if you are worried, if you are concerned, and you do want to chat with somebody, Samaritans or other organisations, of course, do exist. But Samaritans is a really helpful place to just have a chat and have somebody listen to what's going on. You can call 116123 any time of the day. No, there's always somebody there. That's the most important message I ever want to send with these conversations. Or you could text. If you want to text, you can text to shout at 85258. Please do reach out if you're worried. Please do ask the questions. Please do know there's somebody that's there. I'm always here if anybody wants to talk to me, and I'm sure Lucy would be more than happy if anybody did want to ask her any questions about her story.
Absolutely.
As well.
Yeah.
So thank you, Lucy. It's been lovely to see you and great to catch up with you. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.